It was supposed to be a simple detour, one of those quick roadside stops that barely register in the memory, a chance to stretch, grab a snack, and push through the last few hours before reaching the hotel. But June 17th, 2004, never left the minds of the Watkins family. It carved a hole in time. That morning, they'd left Omaha with laughter and a cooler packed with sandwiches. Dana Watkins, a second-grade teacher, had mapped out the whole trip. 5 days, 3 states, national parks, a coastal motel by Santa Cruz, and a dozen family memories she wanted to capture on her old Canon camera. Her husband, Greg, took the wheel of their red Dodge Caravan, their 2 kids in the back, Jordan, 6, and Lexi, 11, already arguing over who would pick the next CD. There was nothing strange about the drive, no odd encounters, no vehicles trailing them, just long stretches of desert, roadside signs, and the hum of the highway baking under the sun. They were somewhere between Ely and Delta, in the no man's land near the Nevada-Utah border, when they pulled into a rest stop. A small gas station stood in the middle of an otherwise empty lot, the kind of place with sun-bleached ice chests out front and vending machines that didn't always work. Jordan had to use the restroom. Lexi wanted candy. Donna followed both kids into the building, while Greg stayed behind to fuel up. Inside, everything was ordinary. The clerk didn't remember them. There were no security cameras facing the entrance. Jordan picked out a juice box and a plastic-wrapped cookie, the kind with bright cartoon packaging. Dana paid, gathered the kids, and they headed back to the van. And then, Jordan was gone. At first, she assumed he was still inside. Maybe he'd wandered into the candy aisle or ducked into the restroom again. She handed the keys to Lexi and jogged back in. But the bathroom was empty. The aisles were clear. No one had seen him walk out. She ran back outside, scanning the lot. Only 2 other vehicles were there, a semi and a rusted sedan, both idling, both accounted for. Greg checked behind the station. Nothing. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The panic set in fast, swallowing everything. A child doesn't just vanish in daylight in a flat, open parking lot. But there was no scream, no sound, no trace. The sheriff's department was called. A bolo went out within the hour. Highway patrol set up checkpoints within a 50-mile radius, stopping cars, asking questions, reviewing travel logs. Dogs were brought in by dusk. Helicopters circled the stretch between state lines. Volunteers combed the sparse desert brush, some even walking shoulder to shoulder through nearby drainage culverts and dry arroyos. But there were no footprints leading away, no tire tracks that didn't belong. Jordan Watkins had disappeared without a sound, a struggle, or a witness. For the first 72 hours, every second felt like it might bring him back. The family stayed at a nearby motel provided by the county. Lexi didn't speak for days. Donna walked the perimeter of the rest stop over and over, replaying every step, every glance, every moment between checkout and the van. Greg blamed himself for not watching the rearview mirror more carefully, for staying at the pump instead of walking in. The guilt became a third parent in that room, hovering in silence. Meanwhile, the public narrative began to shift. News trucks arrived, reporters speculated, comment sections turned cruel. Some pointed fingers at Dana's inconsistencies in early interviews. Others theorized that Jordan had been abducted by a stranger hiding in the restroom, or worse, that it had been planned. Internet forums dissected grainy photos and amateur theories. Psychics reached out. Tips came in from 5 states, all false leads. Each dead end chipped away at hope, leaving only ritual, checking the phone, refreshing inboxes, watching the news in case some miracle emerged from the desert. By August, the search was scaled back. By October, it was called off entirely. The official story remained unchanged. Jordan Watkins was last seen at a rest stop near the Nevada-Utah border on June 17, 2004, at approximately 11:25 a.m. He was wearing a yellow t-shirt with dinosaurs on it, blue shorts, and light-up sneakers. No remains, no ransom, no closure. The family returned to Omaha as 3. The trip never reached the coast. The red van was sold within weeks. Donna stopped teaching the following year. Greg moved into an apartment across town. Lexi transferred schools and later refused to speak to interviewers about that day. In the span of 15 minutes, a child had vanished, and nothing, no evidence, no answers, ever came back. But 2 decades later, in a different part of the state, an abandoned building would surface. And inside, it waited something that hadn't been seen since that morning, something that would pull the past violently into the present. The initial response was immediate. Within an hour of Jordan's disappearance, 2 highway patrol cruisers arrived on scene. By afternoon, the rest stop was cordoned off with yellow tape, and a temporary command center was set up in the dirt lot beside the gas station. Word of a missing child traveled fast, too fast. Media crews were already circling the area by sunset. Choppers hovered above, their shadows dragging across the asphalt like slow-moving vultures. Dana and Greg were kept apart for the first round of questioning. Not because they were suspects, not yet, but because it was procedure. Establish the timeline, eliminate possibilities, focus on facts. At 11:23 a.m., Jordan Watkins was captured on grainy security footage standing near the mini-mart cooler, juice box in hand. At 11:27, the camera showed Donna and Lexi exiting the store. Jordan was not with them. No further footage of him exists. The theory was simple at first. He wandered, 6 years old, distracted, maybe looking at birds, maybe curious about something behind the station. But within 2 hours, that theory began to collapse. There were no other sightings. No one remembered seeing a child alone. And the desert surrounding that stretch of road, it was flat, exposed, and deadly. If he had walked, someone would have seen him, or he would have been found. But there were no prints in the sand, no bent brush, no signs of distress. By nightfall, the temperature began to drop. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging searched a 5-mile radius. K-9 units were brought in from Salt Lake and Reno. They sniffed inside the station, behind dumpsters, around the restrooms, along the road's edge. But the scent trail ended abruptly at the fuel pumps, the same place Dana remembered walking Jordan past less than 10 minutes before he vanished. No trail led away. It was as if the ground had swallowed him. The next morning, state troopers expanded the perimeter. Volunteers joined in. Local residents, off-duty deputies, even long-haul truckers who'd heard the story on their CB radios. They searched culverts, dry creek beds, fence lines, irrigation ditches. Nothing, not even a discarded shoe. The desert offered only silence. It didn't take long for suspicion to shift. By day 3, the news coverage had changed tone. Headlines that once pleaded, "Missing boy, help us find Jordan," now asked harder questions. Why did no one see him leave? And could this be an inside job? The press started dissecting the Watkins family, one detail at a time. Dana's nervous gestures during interviews, Greg's flat, monotone responses, the way Lexi stood silent beside them, eyes wide but mouth closed. Online forums exploded with speculation. Some claimed Greg had taken Jordan out back and disposed of him during the stop. Others suggested Dana had accidentally harmed him and concocted the story to cover it. There was no proof, just the absence of answers. The investigators had no choice but to look inward. Greg and Donna were separated again, this time for polygraphs. They complied. Both passed, though law enforcement never confirmed the results publicly. Forensic teams examined their van, collecting fibers, swabbing surfaces, photographing every inch. A partial shoe print on the back bumper caused a stir, but lab analysis later confirmed it belonged to Lexi. Still, the public wanted someone to blame, and without a suspect, the parents became the story. Stranger abduction theories were explored next. The gas station had no exterior cameras, only the interior feed, which had failed to capture anyone suspicious. Clerks from neighboring towns were questioned, travelers were interviewed. A man in a silver truck was briefly considered a person of interest after being seen driving erratically a few miles east, but he turned out to be a tourist lost on the back roads. Another theory suggested Jordan had been taken into a semi-truck, quick, quiet, and unnoticed, But wait station footage showed no anomalies, and no other truckers reported anything odd. For every possible lead, another dead end followed. By the end of week 2, the official operation began to scale back. The helicopters stopped flying. The search grid was reduced to a 3-mile radius. A formal press conference was held at the sheriff's office. The spokesperson offered carefully chosen words. "We have exhausted all immediate search efforts. While the investigation remains active, the physical operation has concluded for now." Behind the scenes, detectives continued following tips, rechecking timelines, and re-interviewing witnesses, but the momentum had shifted. The media moved on. The public's attention drifted. Only the family and a few remaining officers stayed haunted. Donna kept pushing. She begged for Jordan's photo to be placed on more billboards, more truck stops, more rest areas across state lines. She offered rewards. She pleaded on television. Greg, increasingly withdrawn, returned to work after 6 weeks. He stopped doing interviews altogether. The marriage began to fray. Lexi, now the child everyone could still see, faded into the background. Teachers said she rarely spoke. She carried a photo of Jordan in her backpack for the rest of the year. But Jordan's name never left the local files. One detective in particular, a young recruit named Ray Calder, couldn't let it go. He kept the case folder in his desk drawer for years, reopening it on quiet days, convinced something had been missed. Something simple, something close. He wasn't wrong, but the answers wouldn't surface in files or interviews. They would wait, quietly, patiently, behind a sealed door in a place no one thought to search. Not yet. Greg moved out quietly. No announcement, no farewell. 6 months after the disappearance, he packed 2 duffel bags, signed the lease on a 1-bedroom apartment across town, and stopped returning Dana's messages by the end of the week. He left behind his wedding ring on the bathroom sink and never said the words out loud, but Lexi would later recall the way her father looked the last time he stood in the doorway, like a man who had been staring into a void for too long. There was no fight, no anger, just absence. The house was too quiet after that, too heavy. Dana began sleeping in Jordan's room, not in the bed, but curled in the armchair by the window. She rarely moved his toys. The little green dinosaur stayed frozen mid-roar on the windowsill. His sneakers, still velcroed shut, remained in the corner where he'd kicked them off days before the trip. At first, it was meant to preserve hope, but over time, it became a kind of shrine. She stopped cooking. She started drinking. She told friends it helped her sleep, but the truth was, it helped her not remember, or at least not remember everything at once. By the 2nd year, Donna was attending therapy under court recommendation after a DUI arrest. She'd driven straight through a red light near a school zone and didn't stop until her car hit a stop sign. No one was hurt, but the breathalyzer reading was double the legal limit. The news made local papers. So did the headline, "Mother of Missing Boy Arrested. Again." It wasn't the first, and it wouldn't be the last. Online forums became a permanent scar. Anonymous users speculated that Dana had something to do with the disappearance. They dissected her interviews, her posture, her word choices. They blamed her for not holding Jordan's hand, for not noticing he was gone faster, for being too calm on television. She read every comment, every post, every accusation. Sometimes she argued back. Most times she didn't. But it was never forgotten. The internet never lets go. Not of grief, not of guilt, not of rumors. Lexi tried to keep her head down. School became her refuge. She grew up too fast, learning early that classmates could be cruel and that teachers walked on eggshells when addressing her. Every new school year brought whispers. Every group project, someone would ask, "Was that your brother?" She learned to lie quickly, to say she didn't know, to change the subject, to shut herself off before anyone could pry. By the time she turned 16, she had stopped visiting the rest stop altogether. The road, the gas station, even the landscape around it, all of it made her stomach turn. The family never traveled west again. Year after year, the case faded. It didn't end. It just receded.